back to Inside the Kingdom, your all-access pass into the colorful and creative world of comics. In this episode, our host Nadia Martinez sits down with Super Dee Parson and dives into the world of Rosebuds, one of our newest additions to Comics Kingdom. We talk about the sisters, Dee, and what we can expect from Rosebuds.
Hey guys, we're here at Comics Kingdom Inside the Kingdom. I'm super excited to be joined by Rosebuds, Dion Super Parson, who's one of our newest additions to Comics Kingdom. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, we're happy to have you. Super excited. So you literally just joined us in March.
Yeah, so I've been planning this with King for a while where within the comic strip, with the community, there's this holiday called Maria Day, which is March 14th because it's spelled like Maria. So we've been planning this for quite a while to have the comic, or at least like the reveal that the comic is syndicated under King on Maria Day. I feel like that was like a perfect opportunity to kind of bring that connection of the comic and the comic syndicate together as a big news thing. Cause I kind of do like a big news thing every year. So this time it was, hey, Rosebuds is with King Features now. So, so we're, the comic archive of all the past comics I've done is already up. And then here pretty soon, the new strips will be starting.
That's awesome. So Rosebuds is now syndicated by King Features Syndicate online and in newspapers across the nation. In 2022, Rosebuds was nominated by the Mike, I hope I'm saying that right, Waringo Comic Book Industry Awards for Best Humor Webcomic. So congratulations on that. And
thank you.
A professional in comic strips and cartoons since 2015. So congrats on your journey. This is amazing.
Thank you. This has been, it's been honestly, today actually marks 9 years since I first started being a professional cartoonist. So this has actually been, this is a good roundabout way to kind of celebrate that.
That's awesome. And you kind of combine everything. So you are Ringo nominated newspaper cartoonist, illustrator, animator, educator, and a public speaker.
Yeah. I don't like to talk about that one that much because otherwise I get really nervous.
And you're from Indiana. Do you go to like a lot of different cons? You mentioned you're going to be going to Boston soon.
Actually, last year was my first ever time doing any sort of con as an exhibitor, vendor, the artist alley, things like that. So this is my second year doing it, and I'm going to be traveling out to Boston to be a part of the Boston Comics and Color Festival as a guest. So, not too bad for my second year doing cons.
All right. Can you actually tell us, I want to jump in with, how did you come up with the pen name Super D?
So growing up, everyone used to always call me Super D. And then sometime in middle school, I tried to write the word super, and then I forgot the E in it, and then it just kind of stuck ever since. So I just been Super D the whole time. The number 2, most of my social media handles has a number 2 in it. And that's because, one, it's my favorite number, and because anytime I play a video game that has like multiple save files on it, I always select the second one. No other reason, just because I just do. So it just kind of stuck with me.
That's funny. Yeah, I love that. Game files like Resident Evil, Alan Wake, you always have like the extra saves. So, can you tell us about joining the Comics Kingdom? I guess how your whole connection has been so far.
It's one of those things where it feels surreal because you have, like, next to Andrews McNeil, them and King Features are like the two biggest, syndicates, in the nation. And to be a part of any of their empires is like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. They see something in your work that they say, we want this to represent what we do. And, just the small fact that they think King has felt that Rosebuds is a perfect fit for, what they're striving to do about making comics and bringing stuff that is fun for people. That means a lot to me. That means like, oh my God, that's so cool. Everyone that I've been talking to has been so incredibly sweet. They've been so welcoming, and just like our first meetup was so full of enthusiasm. I reached out to Miss T, who's I believe a senior comics editor for King, and I reached out to her sometime in, I think it was either 2022, late 2022 or early 2023. And I just reached out to her because I was just curious. I saw a tweet from her on Twitter talking about something I can't remember. And so I reached out to her and was like, yeah, I'm kind of curious about like what it kind of takes to be a part of King Features. And like, I'm just kind of curious, like what I could do to be a part of it. And then she responded back, oh, I love Rosebuds. I know who you are. Let's totally talk about this. And from then on, I had a meeting with her and a few other people, and they were like, yeah, no, we love Rosebuds. I conversated with the Popeye Twitter account here and there, and Popeye is a fan of Rosebuds. One of the editors was telling me that she had a 26-year-old that would share my comics with her. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool to hear. So like from the very, very start, it has just been it just feels like a big warm hug. Like, yay, we're all in this together. We're enjoying the ride.
That's great.
It hasn't even started yet.
New journey. And wait, can you quickly tell us about your mentor? You were just briefly telling us before you're working with Ray.
So Ray is an incredibly old friend of mine. He actually, when I did my first comic strip, Life with Cromie, it was a self-syndicated strip that I, got into newspapers with the help of Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield. And he was one of those, he was someone that I would email or message or call a lot and get advice like, hey, how can I improve myself? How can I do things that really make my comic stand out? And he would, take so much time out of his day to talk with me and tell me, how to improve myself, whether it's in life or whether it's in the comics or in art or just in general. And so he has been such a, big advocate for the things that I do that, I'm very appreciative of all the years that we have spent together. And so he's also going to be in Boston in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be doing a panel together.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah.
So you've been doing a lot of collaborations from YouTubers to book publishers and gaming companies, which I thought that was super cool. So I guess how is it working with clients, including Sega? I saw Lo-Fi Girl. I was like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, I loved working with Lo-Fi Girl because it was such a polar opposite to what I'm known for. Lo-Fi Girl is very inspired by Studio Ghibli and anime stuff, whereas I'm inspired by Garfield, Rose's Rose, a bunch of newspaper comics, and so it was a good opportunity for us to play around with like, hey, we haven't seen Lo-Fi Girl in this particular cartoony style, so let's do some strips of her in this kind of cartoony style that you're known for, and to see how that goes out. So I did, a batch full of strips of Lo-Fi Girl. She talks in these because she's often known not to. So, and because it's not verbal, like it's not like there's no audio cues or anything that you need, we were allowed to have her talk, have a bit of a quirky personality that makes her, a little silly that people can relate with, and just make some strips with her. And then also got to direct a Lo-Fi Girl cartoon, which was like a 20-second short of her trying to do studying, but then her cat gets in the way of her trying to study. So something that was just something very short and cute.
Yeah, it was cute seeing that in your style. And what about Sega?
So Sega has had me do some illustrations for them in the past for their social media accounts. My most favorite one is Billy Hatcher. It is my favorite Sega IP. It was so cool to be able to work with Sonic Team on that illustration because they would give me input and advice of like how to tweak, how to make things kind of work with the series. And because it's so underrepresented, it was just a good opportunity just to bring extra light to it. They reached out, and that reason is because they reached out to me and said, "Hey, what's your favorite Sega IP?" I said, "Billy Hatcher. I want to do something with Billy Hatcher." So they were like, "Okay, let's get an illustration going with Billy Hatcher in particular." So that's how that went.
And then even what was it, Toe Jam and Earl? I was like, whoa, that's like a major throwback.
Yeah, I was doing comic strips for them online. Originally, our collaboration started out as kind of a hey, we had some game code giveaways of the game, and I did a little animation of one of my characters, Plush Maria, dancing with Toe Jam and Earl. And then from there, it was like, hey, let me do some comic strips for you guys. And then went from doing comic strips for them to helping them do marketing for their big update for the games, Back in the Groove. And then, when their 30th anniversary happened, I was in charge of designing a bunch of the merchandising for that. So they really have had me, be a part of their family for a while, and it's been really, really nice.
That's awesome. I guess, how was it working? Did you get much like creative freedom? Like, that seems like you got a little bit with Lo-Fi Girl.
Yeah, no, a lot of the people that I work with, they usually work with me because they like something related to what I do. A lot of what I do are my comics. So they usually go, hey, we love your comic. We love for you to do X, Y, and Z, kind of in your style and how we can implement that into our world. So usually they give me a lot of freedom in that regard. And because I'm pretty selective on the type of people that I work with. Usually I like to work with people that kind of follow the similar fun creative philosophies that I handle with my work. So when I work with these people, it's just like, oh, there's instant synergy together. So we can just, work together and just go, oh, this makes sense for what we're wanting to do, what message we're trying to share with our followers, our fans, and things like that. So it just makes they're very fun, very, very, it's a beneficial on both sides type of collaborations because we both get something out of it. We both learn something out of it. It's very beneficial both ways.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and working on things that you grew up with.
Yeah.
And you've also done comic like workshops and guest speaker presentations about pursuing a career in art at like library, schools, and universities. I guess kind of how do you like prepare for those?
I don't. I completely transparent. I don't. I go in there, talk, hope what I say makes sense, and people are inspired by it.
Just be yourself.
I once did a presentation at Ball State University, which is a big university in our state, and I had to talk to, I'm so used to talking to kids about art and stuff, and I could kind of, I could kind of fake my way out of those to make me sound more legitimate than I probably am. But talking to people my age about the art world, about how to make a career in it, is a lot scarier. It's like, yeah, you guys are here spending a lot of money on career stuff, and it's like, how do I talk to you guys about this, because like I didn't go to college. But I try to be vocal and transparent about certain things in the art world with them, and it really helped a lot. Like there was a sense of grounded reality. It wasn't just like, oh, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. There was there was a bit of, hey, have an option B, do X, Y, or Z, pick up something on the side while you do art. So that way, if something happens, you have a fallback plan. And those types of conversations really help a lot.
Are you self-taught?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I graduated high school, and that was kind of it.
You're like, I'm going to. And you're presently working on Life with Karami, Pen and Ink, and Rosebuds. So Rosebuds follows the daily bonds and rivalries of three sisters, Rosa and Maricela Gonzalez, and their antics through their relationships. And it's kind of really about like their unconditional love for one another and their crazy little like situations. They're super cute. I guess first I want to get into like, how did you come up with the title and come up with these characters? Like, why these three Latina sisters and like their story?
So, I actually created the sisters in like 2008, 2009 while I was still in high school. I named them after three of my friends at the time that I had. So I, when it came to them, I wanted to just, it was my first real attempt at just like making characters. Just like, hey, here's a comic with a story about certain characters and stuff. Originally, they dealt with supernatural stuff, horror stuff, ghosts and things like that. But after a while, I think before I graduated, I wanted to do something with them, but couldn't. So then I put them on the shelf, and then Life with Karami happened, and then which kept me for a couple years because it was a daily strip. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I really want to, bring back these characters somehow, someday. So every couple years, I would draw a sketch. I was like, hey, I remember you guys. I haven't forgotten. And then after Life of Karami happened, Pen and Ink happened. Did a couple big books with them, kickstarted some stuff. They were really successful. Kids love them. Still in my back of my head, like, hey, I want to do something with Rosebuds. I want to do something with them. Don't know what, but they're still in the back of my mind. And then I would occasionally sketch them. And then after a while, something in my head said, okay, we should do a graphic novel with them. Bring back the supernatural stuff that you were going to do as a graphic novel. And so the initial thought was to do a graphic novel with the sisters. But then I was like, I haven't done anything with them in over like 10 years or more. So let me get back into fleshing out their characters and try to figure out who they are. So I started doing comic strips with them and just started going, okay, here's some couple comic strips here and there about them trying to figure out the relationship with one another. And then those comics took off, and then I totally forgot about the graphic novel.
How did you come up with the title Rosebuds?
So the name Rosebud is based off of the red rosebud flower, which is just about love, purity, and just this symbol. Actually, I can't think. Man, is it the red or white one? I can't remember. It's one of those flowers. I believe it's the red one. But it's literally about their own individual growth, their love for one another. Just kind of made sense to make to name it something that is about them being together, trying to grow themselves as individuals and as sisters. They kind of rely on each other to make it through the end of the day. So whether they survive that is another story, because sibling rivalries in general is just kind of like that. But that's where the name came from. It was a kind of a metaphor of their relationship with one another. And it kind of goes into, the general synopsis of the series where, they're thorns in each other's side, but their love for one another keeps them blossoming because they do love each other. Just every once in a while, they annoy each other and might want to sell each other on the black market,
Yeah, I remember the really funny one. It was like Rosa had the jar. Like every time Rosa's right, she'll get like coins, and then
Mhm.
Marcella, like hers was like completely like overflowed. So they're like, "Wait, are you stealing our coins?"
Yeah, yeah. And then Maria, she just had like 3 or 4 quarters in the jar.
And I guess how did you kind of come up with like the different personalities? Because Maria, I'm guessing like she's like has like ADHD, and they're kind of like exploring that. Maricella's the youngest, Rose is the oldest. So I guess how is it kind of writing like their individual like personalities?
So my biggest philosophy for the 3 of them is that one, they're all the main characters. So this comic strip is about, if one comic strip is about Rosa, it's about Rosa. If one is about Marcella, it's about Marcella. If there's one about Maria, it's about Maria. So each of they're an ensemble. So like without one, the whole thing kind of doesn't really work out because the comic is based around their relationships with one another. They kind of have a rock, paper, scissors dynamic, which helps a lot with how certain avenues or certain aspects work. And it can also help with like how they can be written as well. So like, the general thing is Rosa beats Maria, Maria beats Marcella, Marcella beats Rosa. But then you can actually swap those around and go, Marcella beats Maria or Maria, beats Rosa in those types of scenarios, like depending on what the context is and things like that. But you have a general, rock, paper, scissors dynamic that helps them, where they work and how they fit in these types of scenarios. And then with that, in terms of like their personalities, their personalities are kind of based around like, uh, how do I say this? Certain avenues of like personality traits, either that I have in myself, people that I know, or even things like, sorry, I'm trying to basically like things that kind of revolve around the world that I see or that I experience. Like I have 2 sisters. I'm the middle child of 3, so I can easily relate to Maria's monkey in the middle sort of relationship with her sisters. Can never, can never really find her footing, even though she's probably the most vocal out of them all. But with Rosa, she's so stern, rock hard. She's more stoic. Like she's incredibly reserved. She's had not a good childhood upbringing, and so having to be both the sister and the parental figure, she's in this split personality sort of thing where how do you protect the sisters but also want them to have a good child, have them both have good childhoods like one that she wasn't able to have. So like their dynamics really just bounce off of each other. Maria's very, very upbeat and happy. Marcella, she's actually gotten a lot more. She's more of like a, Maria would call her an intern, where she would follow her to do things. Rather, she's a genius at heart, but she's still a kid that will follow things that are cool, and she finds Maria cool, and Maria isn't probably the best role model to have at her age, but she finds things that are fun that are a little unconventional from the world. So.
And how do you find like topics to come up with, I guess? Like what's your process for like adventures? Like they'll do things like go to like a psychic, and then like you also have like the therapist stuff. So I guess how do you kind of come up with these like situations?
So what I like to do is I try to think of scenarios to put them in that either challenges their character or enhances their personality. Where like where I'm not a humorous person. I don't think I'm a humorous cartoonist, but I like to make characters that feel grounded in reality, that you would feel like you would know you would personally know these people, and would see them as neighbors or as people that you would see once in a while and you go, hey, how's it going? Like like you'll have small talk with them in a coffee shop or in a line. You guys are just trying to catch up and like, hey, this and this, so and so did this last week and things like that. So their stories, they're pretty. It's like exaggerated realism. They can do things because they're cartoon characters, so you can kind of branch out a bit more on the things that they can and can't do, but have it grounded enough where it's like, yeah, I kind of understand this situation, this scenario that they're in, because stuff like that happens. Like the psychic you were talking about, sometimes I know people that or at least like kids growing up, we would play pretend or be like, hey, I'm this person from this TV show or something. It's just like,
That's right.
yeah, yeah. And so like, with Maria, who's always interested in like horror things or, things that aren't really of that are kind of unknown, she'll really play into those interests and kind of go above and beyond those. So yeah, she'll play as a fortune teller, or she'll play as a movie director that's trying to make her own short horror film. Marcella might go along with it because she thinks it's fun, or she might be too scared to because she's afraid of the dark or she's afraid of scary stuff. And Rosa just trying to be the main protector, just trying to make sure that hey, don't do things that are too dangerous, things like that.
And I guess what would their ages be?
So Marcella is 8. She's the youngest. Maria is 16, and Rosa is in her like mid to late 20s. So like they each of their age groups actually factor into kind of like their personalities as well. Where like Marcella's still in childhood, so she has a lot more of a more free-form idea of the world, where she loves sticker sheets, she loves tea parties, she loves doing all these cutesy things. Maria, she's a little more grown up, but she is also still will do things in a weird way that still make you think, yeah, that makes sense for a teenager her age, or not really, but also like that's kind of what she likes to do. And then Rosa being an adult, it helps her. Again, she kind of didn't have the childhood that Maria and Marcella have, so she's making sure that they get everything they need. So so they don't have to feel without like she had to.
Yeah, what was that one? She was like reflecting on her past, like shoveling and like doing all these tasks.
Yeah. There was a strip where Maria and Marcella are on winter break, and all 3 of them were on the couch with blankets and hot cocoa, and they were asking Rosa if she had ever had winter break before, and she was telling them about it. And everything she did was just trying to survive. So for one of the first times, she's kind of realized, hey, I'm actually enjoying the winter break, being with people I love. So
we hope you're enjoying the vibrant stories and behind-the-scenes glimpses on Inside the Kingdom. We have a small favor to ask. Help keep the comic conversation going by subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform. And if you have a moment, please leave us a rating or review wherever you're tuning in. Your feedback not only supports us, but also helps other comic enthusiasts find us. Every subscribe, rating, and review makes a huge difference, and we truly appreciate your support. Or consider visiting comicskingdom.com and have a look at these comics yourself. Thank you. And let's get back to Inside the Kingdom.
And I guess, what kind of adventures do you have going on in the future? Anything you can talk about, or like fun ideas you're trying to work on?
Yes. So there are a few things in the workshop at the moment, trying to make sure it makes sense, but also like I'm being as bold as I can, because I don't think I've been able to be as bold with the strip as I have been before. But like there's as I said in the past, Marcella is afraid of the dark. She's afraid of monsters. Maybe she's always thinking there's a monster under her bed. Maria would kill at the sight of a monster under a bed, but she doesn't believe her. There might actually be a monster under her bed. Who knows? Getting more involved with, especially their school life, because Marcella's a child prodigy. She is in high school, so figuring out how the world is reflected into her, in terms of like how does this work for an 8-year-old to be in high school with a bunch of teenagers? How this makes Maria feel, to be outclassed by both her little sister and her older sister. How does this reflect her as a character? How Rosa, her having an absent childhood will allow her to figure out new things, like has she ever rode a bike before? Is she terrified of bikes? Despite being actually a musclehead, like she is very, very strong. She can break trees and turn them into toothpicks if she wanted to, but she's very soft on the inside. She has a very brick wall outside, but on the inside she's very soft. She loves cute things and is very afraid to openly admit that. It has been repressed inside her for so long that she's like, she wants to explore cute stuff, but she's too afraid to. She thinks it's a sign of weakness, because she's had to protect herself for so long, and now she has to protect her sister's neck too. So it's one of those things where we'll explore their character traits a bit more, their personalities a bit more. I feel like a lot of the strips that I've done in the past have just been a way to kind of look into them a little bit, but not too much, because if a bigger opportunity came for the strip to allow them to grow and develop, like now, this is a good time that we can actually dive a bit deeper into their characters and see how things work for them.
Do you think you'll ever write them like kind of like aging, like, or?
I thought about it. I probably won't, just because I feel that they each hit a certain age demographic that it fits perfectly for them, and by aging them out of it, it would make it harder to
That makes sense.
to keep that relatability factor.
Yeah.
Like that way, if Rosebuds goes on for 25 years, people that are in their their early childhood or their preteen, they'll relate to the sibling rivalries of all the sisters, and it'll stay consistent enough.
Yeah, that makes sense. This way you can explore like more adventures and activities and stuff within these age groups. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And the colors are like so like beautiful and vibrant. I really like your art style. It's a lot of fun. I could see it like on Cartoon Network or something. How do you because you said you're self-taught. Did you originally start in digital painting, or did you like learn traditional? How did you kind of get your start?
I learned traditionally. I had a lot of cartoonist friends. They would talk to me about how to handle brushes and using like a Bristol board to make 3-4 panel comic strips. Everything Up when I first started Life with Karami in 2015, everything up until like 2017 was hand drawn, and then I slowly moved over to digital before the end of Life with Karami's run in newspapers, and then I did pen and ink completely digitally, and then once I started Rosebuds, I started doing like a bit of a hybrid where I would do all my sketches and thumbnails of like what I'm going to write about traditionally, and then I would continue it over digitally. So that way, there's still just a piece of the originality of, hey, this was hand drawn. So yeah, it's something that I've just have learned in years and years of practice and trying to figure out how it works for me and how I can improve and benefit off of it.
And for Life with Tommy and Pen and Ink, are you still currently working on those? Because they're still ongoing, right? Are you like starting any?
Yes. So Life with Karami is a comic strip about a single mother raising her infant daughter, trying to overcome her own self-doubts and anxieties. That one is currently being published in a bunch of magazines. So it's like either monthly or bi-monthly, depending on the magazine. So I keep up with that. Quite a bit. Pen and Ink is about two sisters. They are artists. They live in this fantasy world called Canvadia, and all of it's literally just driven by art. And the main focus of their series is that, Pen is the older sister. She is the professional artist. She's trying to learn how to teach her little sister Ink, who is 3 years old and is the embodiment of messy, about how to be self-expressive in the world of art, but also how to reel her back in every once in a while also learning about how she can continue to find her own identity in art. So like they're polar opposites of each other. Pen is very neat, very tidy, very elegant, whereas Ink, messy. Her whole entire outfit is covered in paint. She uses her ponytail as a paintbrush. They're just complete polar opposites of each other in terms of who they are, but that is what brings them together. They're like the bestest of friends, and they love to spend time together. They love to do things together. They love especially to do art together, and it's that bond between them that really helps sell the idea of this is an artist journey with people that you love.
And what were some of your inspirations growing up? I guess like whether it's artists or like characters.
For me, the top cream of the crop will always be Garfield. Jim Davis has been such an important influence in my life, both personal and creatively, that you can't go without saying how important the Paws Inc. team has been as well. Other influences, Dave Pilkey. I really loved Captain Underpants growing up. I still do. I was first in the seats for the Captain Underpants movie when it came out. It was fun. It was fun growing up seeing a comic about two friends that love to make comics in a world that really did not like them, because I was living that exact same environment where I wasn't really liked, and it was really hard to find ways to get people to actually like me for who I am rather than other reasons. So, I really related to that comic a lot. Pat Brady and Don Wimmer, who create Rose's Rose, is probably one of the most sweetest comics you could ever read. I just love how unapologetically sweet it is. How like it's disgustingly sweet. Is what I like to say, and what I kind of aspire Pen and Ink in particular to be, because it's literally just about this family. They love each other a lot. They embrace their insecurities. their imaginations. They're all just so happy. They're like the ideal family you want to be. Like there's just so much fun. Rose, Jimbo, and Pascal. They're just like the art is so gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And like, oh my gosh, I could gush about it forever because I don't think the comic strip gets talked about enough. So those are some of my big influences.
And do you ever feel like keeping up with things in a sense of like things that you have to add to your characters? Like I would say like things that are like are news big or like movie big or certain things like that. Like you try to like incorporate like things that are happening at the moment or just kind of whenever you feel like it.
I honestly actively try to avoid doing any sort of pop culture references just because I want the comic strip to kind of be in its own bubble where it again, if you pick it up 25 years in the future, it still feels as upkept with modern life as it is now. So by leaving it just a bit behind the times and not really bringing up any sort of pop culture references, that I kind of try to stay away from that.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Like with what you were saying, like about the ages as well, and kind of keeping like the whole sibling age difference and like the gaps all kind of relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what's the most important lesson that you've learned in your career and any advice that you would give to like fellow like future artists?
So I think the most important one I have learned is that this whole thing, like everything that we're doing, it's community driven. Like this is something that you are not alone in doing. It might feel like it sometimes, but there are people, in the background that are rooting for you, that are actually, are really enthusiastic to see you succeed, to see you be the best you that you can be. And, it's something that I really try to take to heart that I am not alone. It felt like being an artist doing cartoons. It's one of those. We all strive for that community to fit in, to be a part of something that makes us feel accepted. And it could get hard to, especially because we're always working in isolation. We spend so much of our times alone by ourselves that it makes it incredibly difficult to remind ourselves that we are appreciated, that we have people that do love us. And so, if there's anything that I have to say, it's nothing rather art related, but rather an internal thing, is just to remember that this is something that we're all in together, and to never forget that you have people in your corner that are there for you. That's something that I've struggled with. I continue to struggle with. But time and time again, I get reminded that this is something that we are in for the long haul, and we are here to do it together.
Yeah, I think it's great that you do workshops too, like especially for like newer artists. There's a lot more opportunities that necessarily weren't available like before. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I do those because like where I live in particular, there's not really a community for there's not really a community for artists, but there's even a lesser community for cartoonists. And so it's really hard to find out where to go, who should I talk to, what kind of resources are there. So I try to, pay the kindness forward that the cartoonists above me have, given to me, and try to pay that forward however I can.
Yeah, like start building a community up.
Yeah.
And what's your kind of, I guess, like typical day look like? Like, what's your kind of work routine? Like, what gets you like motivated and ready to go?
I wake up, hope I can make a comic, then pray. It's my day to day is so sporadic because it's always changing. One hour I could be making comics, and oh, wait a second, there's getting emails like, hey, we want you to do this, or hey, we'd like you to be a part of this, and then oh, okay, now my day has turned into doing this thing over here, or teaching a workshop. Not saying that stuff's last minute. It's usually just like, oh, I spend a lot more time maybe looking at emails than I probably do actually making comics. And that's not good for the deadlines, and it doesn't help either when I have ADHD and my brain, if I can focus on something for a certain period of time and then something distracts me, oh, that concentration is broken. It's not returning. So, oops, I have to really emphasize. It's a huge fight for myself to constantly go, okay, you're doing this today. You're doing this today. Let's do it. And then, oh, I probably actually want to wash my dishes instead. Oh, I actually, you know what? There's someone I needed to text like 4 days ago. Let me go take care of that real quick. Then it becomes 5 o'clock. I did absolutely nothing. And then I'm like, well, there's always tomorrow.
Yeah, I feel like
then tomorrow I work until 1 o'clock in the morning. You go, oh, I didn't eat anything for the rest of the whole day.
Gotta remember to eat. Have you ever, I guess, wrote an idea for one comic in mind, but then ended up using it for a different one?
Yes, it kind of happens sporadically. Sometimes there's a gag, something I'll think of for Life of Crumb and go, you know what? If I retweak this a bit, I could actually use this in Rosebuds, and then another comic gets kind of the short end of the stick. Is like, oh, okay, now I got to make another comic idea for this one, and it kind of helps because each of the comics, they kind of have their own, I say levels of levels of spice to it. Where pen and ink is at the bottom, it is super sweet. It's very like you'll get a cavity, reading the strip just because it's just so fun, colorful, and makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. On the polar opposite end is Rosebuds, where they're more slapsticky, more cartoony. They're I don't want to say like Looney Tunes ish, but like they have that sense of like daytime sitcom where they're always into something, getting into situations and antics together. And then in the center of that is Life of Cromie, where it's kind of sweet, but it also has that type of slapsticky, grounded in reality, exaggerated humor sort of deal. So for each of them, they each have a different writing style that I have to work with in terms of, okay, let's do this with pen and ink, or let's do this with Rosebuds. And so it kind of helps with how I can handle, character dynamics and stories and things like that.
Do you think they'll ever cross over?
Life of Cromie and Rosebuds, potentially, not pen and ink, because I've made a solid rule. Pen and ink are the only two humans in this world where there's just a bunch of abstract, like 1950s looking characters where they're like shapes and colors and things like that. So they're the only humans in this world. They can't cross over with other humans, is basically what I'm getting at. So they won't see either of them. Whether, like, if I do it in promotional art, yeah, that's fine, because I'll have all three series together doing something, but not in continuity.
And then you mentioned that you wrote the 3 names are from friends. Did they know they were going to be in the comic?
So the characters aren't based on them. I just took their names because I didn't know what names to give them. So I asked them if I could use their names for the characters, and they're like, "Yeah, that's fine." So But they do like it that they still follow the strip, which is pretty nice. So they, especially Maria, she's the real life Maria. She's really nice, and she's always so supportive of it. And so, but yeah, it's it's one of those things where I like to name characters after people that are very important in my life. I've done it with a few other characters in the past, like with like pen and ink, they have middle names. I've used those middle names after people that I know, and so Rosebuds is the same way, where I named them after people that were important to me. So yeah.
And what was the best compliment you've ever received?
The best compliment? Oh my gosh. So there was a museum exhibition for both Life with Karami and Pen and Ink a few years back at an art museum. A woman came to the exhibition. She came to me in tears, and she was telling me about how she was a single mother with 6 kids, and when she reads Life with Karami, she felt like she was being recognized, that it's hard, it's rough, but you still have the spirit to keep going. Like, it's kind of you against the world in these sorts of scenarios, and that they, that it's good to be appreciated for, for continuing to move forward and not giving up. So that has stuck with me for so long. That type of, that's kind of like the type of impact that comics and art can have on people. Like they see that I understand, like, you understand what I'm going through. I'm not a single mother, but my mom is, and I have seen how much of a hardworking woman she has been, all grown, raising me and my little sister. So I completely, sympathize and realize just how hard of a journey it is to do it.
Wow, yeah, that's a great compliment. It just shows like the impact, like you said, the impact that comics can have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when it comes to my comics, I try to make that I don't make like an intention. I don't want to make like an intentional impact, but what I try to do is each of my comics have a certain aspect of love to it. And that's the theme of all my comics is love. Life with Karami is about loving yourself. Pen and Ink is about loving what you do, and Rosebuds is about loving those around you. And so you can kind of pick up on that theme based on the comic strip and what each of the characters kind of go through. And with Rosebuds in particular, about loving those around you, it's a community-based effort between these sisters that they're in this together. Like this is them kind of against the world sort of deal. So they have each other to rely on for support, and to be able to just be the best thems that they can be. They're their own cheerleaders.
And lastly, do you want to tell people currently working on some future plans and projects?
I feel like this with King Features has been the biggest one I've done so far, and I kind of want to focus on that for a little bit. I don't know if I have energy for anything else at the moment. Only because if I overwork myself too much, and I have a bad habit of doing that, things will get a little crazy. So I will just say, just follow me on my socials at Super D2 on all of them, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I usually share what I'm doing and keep an eye on things there. But here I'm just, right now I'm here to get back on the saddle with Rosebuds, because people after a year of silence, deafening silence. People have been emailing me nonstop, commenting, saying, "Hey, where's Rosebuds? We missed the comic. Where is it?" I've gotten so many emails. I just got one like a week before we announced the syndication, the syndication of the strip. So when I went, here's, are you happy? I was so relieved that people were so happy. And so we're all still kind of riding the high and celebrating the strip. This big news with the strip, and then ready for the new stuff to come out. So
yeah, so now everybody can find it online through Comic Kingdom and in newspapers across the nation. So congrats on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dee.
Thank you for joining us on Inside the Kingdom. A big thank you to Nadia Martinez and Super Dee Parsons for joining us today and expanding on the wonderful world of Rosebuds. A reminder, if you enjoyed today's episode or any of our episodes, please like, subscribe, share, and review. It goes a long way to making sure that this podcast is enjoyed by others and we continue to deliver more of Inside the Kingdom.